Okay, good morning. Good afternoon to people who are logging in virtually. Want to thank Catapult Systems for including us. This is our first year taking part in the event, and as relative newcomers to the broader Microsoft System Center ecosystem, it's really exciting to see such a community-led event, and a lot of the customers that we interact that have had participated in this in the past have spoken very highly of it, and that's really what drove us here. So I run product management at BlueStripe, and what I want to start with is give you a little bit of background on what we do, and then we'll lead right into how do we integrate in with System Center, in particular around bringing distributed application context, both in terms of dependencies and performance, into Ops Manager, and actually a lot of synergy with the previous talk here. How does that then feed into automation that you can do around knowing that information is in the context of key business applications, distributed apps, their performance, and what kinds of automation you can drive from that. I'm going to end with a demo, and also a lot of what I talk about today, we'll have a separate breakout session this afternoon, so we'll go in a lot more depth into that. So BlueStripe Software, we are a System Center Depth ISV Alliance partner, so that's a bit of a mouthful. What does that really mean? So basically, we've been able to and been fortunate enough to partner very closely with the folks in Redmond based on the value that we've been able to see through our joint customers out in the market. And so this gives us access both to the product team in terms of looking at strategic roadmaps and how we might be able to work together, but then also in terms of getting access to this broader ecosystem of System Center field representatives as well as the partner ecosystem as well. So we at BlueStripe are fundamentally about providing IT operations teams with the visibility that they need to support critical business apps and distributed applications, right? So if you think about revenue generating, resume impacting types of applications that have to be supported, we're all about enabling these operations teams to, first and foremost, understand what aspects of the infrastructure that they own, that they're responsible for, are supporting those applications, are tied to those service levels being provided to their customers, and at any given point in time, where is performance degrading? Understanding transactions flowing across that environment. As slowdowns occur, knowing where and why. But then, the key thing that we've seen over the last several years is, as we've gone and worked with customers that are using System Center as a core part of their strategic management strategy, they really wanted to be able to take that application context that we provide in our solution and bring it into System Center. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Really quickly, just some of the customers that we work with, but I think the most notable one here and one we're very proud of is Microsoft itself is one of our largest customers. So as a separate software vendor, it's a privilege for us to get to work with them, and we're very proud of the fact that Microsoft has seen the value, not just in terms of what we can bring to their product offering in the market, but in terms of how we can help them manage their own applications internally. So to kind of set the problem up that we set out solving, and we'll bridge into how that integrates into System Center, if you think about complexity as a #1 challenge, right? And the statistics here we have are taken from a survey that we did of over 100 IT operations executives, all describing their environments of either having high or out of control complexity. And that complexity comes in the nature of what these application architectures are and how they've evolved. You think about increased virtualization. You think about cloud, hybrid cloud, on-premise. You think about clustered services. You think about the fact that the infrastructure that actually supports these environments has become so complex that at any given point in time, it's very difficult to understand what are the components that make up this app that I'm trying to support. Then add to that the challenge that traditionally, most of the tools that have been designed to give you the visibility into these different applications come from the perspective of a certain silo. So whether I'm looking into a tool that's deep dive into IIS, whether I'm looking at a deep dive database monitor, not having that understanding of how all of these different components are interconnected and affecting performance for the apps that you are providing to your customers, you don't have the ability to be able to see at any given point in time where should you be focused. Then when you think about if I've got users that are calling us up screaming, hey, look, login is timing out, I can't get in, or it's taken 60 seconds, the sheer dynamic nature of these applications, when you have to try and focus on what is causing a set of login transactions to be slow, well, how are you going to be able to follow that? The paths can take multiple different routes. They touch all these different components. So this is the problem that we set out about solving with our solution, FactFinder. So if you think about this at a big picture, you have to start with service levels. You have to understand what's the performance being provided to consumers of this application, right? And again, this could be end customers, could be a public-facing website. This could be a back-office application in your internal customers within the organization. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to think about, okay, that login transaction, is it performing within normal SLAs? What are the different tiers that make up the rest of that transaction? So this is actually modeled off of one of our customers, a banking customer. A login in their environment crosses 9 different tiers just to log into their environment. So at any given point in time, you need to be able to assess the performance of those tiers to be able to isolate where should you be focused, right? So if I get that trouble ticket that says login slow, well, where do I go now? So FactFinder, which is our solution, starts with discovery. Because at the end of the day, IT operations cannot be expected to know beforehand all of the different systems and all the different components running on them that make up that login transaction. So you've got to have a solution that's able to go out in that environment across multiple different types of platforms, OSs, virtual, physical, and discover the path, right? So login, touching multiple different components, WebSphere, MQ, even calls back into the mainframe. Then it's about, again, overlaying that performance, right? Can you actually monitor the performance of those login transactions being provided by your data center and the infrastructure within it? Then isolating the bottleneck, right? So a lot of our customers talk to us about 50-person bridge calls going on for 2 weeks, each person trying to figure out from their perspective where are things slowing down. Well, if I can take you right to the MQ system where things are slowing down, I don't need to get those other 50 people. I need to go look at that one system. But then it's about also being able to drill down, right? Because at the end of the day, the complexity continues as you go down within the operating system. You start to think about configuration, right? You think about how much heap's allocated to a particular JVM. You think about storage. So it's all about being able to blend transaction performance with understanding of the structure of the application and then being able to drill down within the different nodes to figure out what's going on. At its core, this is what FactFinder does. So let's talk about now what we do with System Center. In particular, as I mentioned, we've had lots of customers that were using System Center as a core strategic platform. State Auto is a great example. We have a great webinar with them on our website. And they talk about having a lot of rich technical information in System Center, right? All of the deep data that you get from the various different management packs, et cetera. But what they lacked was the customer context. They lacked the understanding of how do these systems come together in the context of an online claims processing application, for example? And how are those different alerts that we're seeing within all of that infrastructure translating into customer-facing issues or maybe lower priority issues? So first and foremost, these customers want to be able to bridge between application performance into the information they're seeing in System Center. And they need to do this across platforms. So we primarily serve mid to large enterprise customers, and really these customers have very heterogeneous environments. Windows, Linux, AIX, Solaris. I've already talked with a few people here this morning that have similar environments. So you need a solution that can bridge across those different platforms. 2, they need to be able to see everything in one view, right? So again, if I've got a CPU alert on a back-end system, but I don't know if that system is actually affecting one of the critical apps that's in trouble, well, how do I know which alert should take priority? And then the other is as changes are occurring, right? Because at the end of the day, change is the norm, right? Things change so quickly that you need to know at any given point in time, how are these changes, whether they're planned or unplanned, impacting the performance of this application? But again, we come back to complexity, right? So if you sit down and talk with someone who's looking at distributed applications inside of Operations Manager, for example, and they say, one of the common things we heard was, yeah, we've looked at that. We really should do that. But the challenge has been just understanding what are all those dependencies, right? So even for those that do take the time to go spend building out an architectural diagram, working with the application owners, the architects, figuring out what are those dependencies, by the time they've built it, it's typically out of date. A lot of times, we actually will see, particularly when you're starting to talk about legacy applications or maybe applications that have been, a web front end talking to back end systems, people who actually built the app aren't necessarily even at the company anymore. So just being able to get to that level of understanding of what is the structure of this environment is a huge challenge. 2, the change, right? Again, rolling out new versions. As development teams have moved to more agile approaches, that change is the norm. So does your monitoring solution enable you to keep up with that change, or does it get broken by that change? And then again, coming back to cross-platform. This is a major focus for us. You may have extensive coverage of systems, but what if there's some back-end domain controller that's causing problems, or a DNS server, right? Maybe a system that you don't have covered within your operations manager views. FactFinder is going to ensure that that's always there within your views. Discover those and help you understand those dependencies. So in a nutshell, we bring real distributed apps into System Center. I'm going to demo in a couple seconds here, but this is about end-to-end views, mapping from the front-end systems to the back-end, including systems that you may not have already known about, understanding as changes occur, seeing those reflected right within Operations Manager, and very, very importantly, integrating service-level alerting into these views. It's not just about which systems are talking to which other systems. It's not just about which components on those systems. It's about the overall performance of the app. It's about being able to see all of that management pack data, your health monitors, your health status, all rolled up right there within Ops Manager. So let's take a look. So out of curiosity, how many people here are using Operations Manager today? Okay, good number, excellent. How many people have looked at and or are using distributed applications today? Okay, great. So for those of you that are familiar with Ops Manager, this will look like a familiar view. And let's take the scenario where our team is supporting online claims, right? This is our key customer-facing application as an insurance business. And one common view is I may come in and look at, okay, what are all the active alerts, right? What do I need to go pay attention to? And this is a great way to illustrate some of the challenge that a lot of our customers have seen. Because if I just start looking at a list of alerts, how do I know which is the highest priority? Well, I've got some that are system-centric. I've got actually some you can see here coming from FactFinder, and we'll go into those a bit more. But as a starting point, there's no real context here, right? But by virtue of our integration with System Center, we've now got a dynamically defined, again, the user does not have to know anything about this environment, distributed application view directly within System Center. Get my window to refresh. There we go. We've got a new layout, thinking more logically about the way in which the flow across these different systems occurs, right? So we got IIS systems talking to Apache, WebSphere running on Solaris, back-end systems, database systems. One other really important thing, and you can maybe note from the name of the application, this is an Azure hybrid cloud application. These front-end systems here are actually Azure Platform as a Service or cloud services, right? This has traditionally been a real challenge in terms of getting monitoring visibility to Platform as a Service instances, because at the end of the day, you don't own the VM, right? Well, we've been able to partner with Microsoft to be able to get our technology deployed so that anytime these new instances come up, you're able to see that end-to-end view. You're able to see across this hybrid cloud environment, right? Able to span from those components running in Azure to those running within your data center. Other key things, you'll see the health monitors rolled up here directly within the context of this app. So our integration not only pushes in the definition for the distributed app, but also reconciles all of the existing objects within SCOM that you've already got defined. So now, instead of looking at a health monitor on Oracle and SQL Server in isolation, you're doing it in the context of our hybrid cloud online claims processing app. Now, one other key thing, I mentioned service level alerting. Well, in FactFinder, which I'm going to show in a couple seconds, we're able to define alerts on really all of the different components that comprise the service levels your app or business service is providing. All right, so that could be the overall application. That could be individual components. So in fact, if we look right here, I've got Apache on a system here, and I've got an issue, and I want to go take a look at the Health Explorer and figure out what's going on. So I can come in, we can see our FactFinder alerts monitor, and we can see directly that we've had a service level violation, an average response time alert that has triggered on that component. So if you step back and look at what we're providing inside of Ops Manager, no need to manually define these distributed apps. Our product is going to push these definitions in, and as changes occur, they're going to be reflected here. No need to worry about tying together existing information within your management packs in the context of an app. That's all handled automatically. And we are bringing in overall application and hop-by-hop service level monitoring directly within these views. So let's take a look at how we actually get this data inside of Operations Manager. So this is the FactFinder console. So FactFinder is our core product. It's the only product that we sell. And you're going to see a couple different perspectives right away. First is just a large view of the complexity of this system. You know, if you go back to that slide that I showed, here's the overall set of systems within our data center. Here are all of the applications that FactFinder has automatically discovered. There's systems, so if I want to look at an individual server, but since we're focused on Azure Hybrid Cloud, I'm going to click there. I now, with one click, have visibility to the performance of this application over the last 10 minutes, updating in real time. I have a simple summary of the number of systems that are a part of that app. But where it gets really interesting is when I double click and I go into our App Explorer. You can think of this as a dedicated workbench for just those systems and those components on those systems that make up this application. So you can see, again, we have Azure Cloud Services. We have on-premise databases. We have a mixture of platform as a service and infrastructure as a service. And I can expand out so that you're not just looking at server-to-server connections. You're actually seeing which components on those systems comprise this application. So I've got front-end app pools. I've got them talking to WebSphere. I've got the average response time. In fact, we can see there's a nasty spike up during this time range that we're looking at in average response time. So if I step back and I look at this and I can say, I don't have to know anything about this app. I didn't go have to ask an architect. I didn't go have to ask the database guy to go drill into his tool. I didn't have to go ask the web server guys to drill into theirs. I've got instant visibility to the structure of this app, the overall performance. But I can also follow hop by hop across these different tiers. So you can see these thicker lines. We're overlaying performance on top of these links so that you can understand. Think of it as a heat map for the response time in this particular application. So when I'm seeing that nasty spike up and I'm seeing big, thick arrows pointing me to this system, I can now drill in. I can now do that drill down that I mentioned before. I can see a summary of service levels for the overall application. I can see the performance up at the application layer, at the guest OS. This happens to be a VMware virtual machine. And we can even integrate the VM performance stats directly in here. And we can see, wow, the system overall is suffering, big CPU spike. I can come in and I can look at what are all the different components running on that system. I can filter down and I can isolate. Somebody's got a backup process that's running during business hours. It's pegging the CPU, and it's choking out the core transactional components on that system, killing the response time for the app. So if you step back and look at all of this, what is it about? It's about discovering apps. It's about understanding all the different components in real time, even as changes occur. It's about integrating service level visibility and being able to feed all of that directly into System Center. Knowing that as changes occur, it's always going to be updated. And now you can start thinking about, okay, if I want to do runbook activities, now I can start to trigger those off of service levels, right? If I've got a tier 1 application that's got a crit set, I need to elevate that as a top priority versus the hundreds of other alerts that our team is trying to sift through, right? Being able to feed that into Service Manager, right? So we have the ability to directly populate these distributed applications into Service Manager as business services. Being able to do that in an automated fashion so that you know you always have the definitive system of record for your critical customer-facing apps in Service Manager. So really quickly, all it takes to be able to get this data into Operations Manager is point us to your SCOM management server, provide read-only username and password, and then go ahead and pick which applications do you want to send over, and that's it. We handle the rest. So I'm going to go into quite a bit more detail on the technical depth. I'm going to talk a bit more about Orchestrator and Service Manager and show examples of those in my breakout session. Couple other things, just to wrap up here. Virtual attendees, you have an opportunity to win one of these nice BlueStripe branded OGO backpacks. If you just go ahead and retweet here, as you can see, we'll be announcing the winner later on. As I mentioned at the breakout session, I'm also going to be giving away one of those. And in fact, we did do a random drawing. So if there is wrote your name down here, is a William Smith here from Monster Worldwide. I'm glad we picked another name. Scott Farnsworth. Foxworth, there we go. Come on up. Yeah. So with that, thank you very much. And again, we'll have the breakout session this afternoon. Look forward to seeing everyone else there. And thank you very much to the virtual attendees as well.